Hi guys, welcome back to I'll Read What She's Reading. I'm Mikayla.
I'm Kennedy.
And I'm Reggie.
And today we're going to be discussing your hot takes. And reading through a few of those, I feel like we've been called out a little bit.
It's okay.
It's fine.
To each their own.
It's okay. The thing is like, these are your personal hot takes. And so like, if you don't agree with us on everything, that's fine. Totally normal. I mean, I think some of us have like some differing opinions on some things, which is totally fine. I think it makes it more fun. And I'm interested to hear their takes on some of the hot takes.
They're piping hot.
The piping
They
hot.
are. Some of these are.
Sit down, grab your tea.
It's about to get
Some
hot.
popcorn.
It's about to get hot.
Piping.
All right, so we just jump in?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
We'll just each pick one to read. Maybe this isn't a good one with me to start off with, but I just have something to say about this one. A few people have said this, I think, from what I have scrolled. You guys can tell me if we shouldn't talk about this. Powerless is knockoff of the Hunger Games and isn't that good. And all I have to say is that the trial trope, like, it's a thing.
It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's
Yeah.
not Powerless is not the only book that has a Hunger Games element. It's okay if you don't like the book, but there are a lot of books that came even before Powerless, like way before Powerless, that have a similar idea. It's almost like saying like Enemies to Lovers is a knockoff of, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
The trial aspect is very popular in young adult fantasy.
Mhm.
And there was a long stretch in time. I know Powerless is new, but there was a long stretch in time where there's a lot of trials. I can think of a few different books that have the trial aspect. It's just a fun, engaging way to have a little bit of plot in a fantasy book. So
Yeah.
I eat it up every time.
I do too. I don't think there's anything wrong with not liking the book, but I think discrediting her writing because it's similar to another book is not okay, because authors spend a lot of time, and it's not like she plagiarized. She just took a lot of inspiration from other books, which a lot of authors do. So
Yeah.
Movies,
I just felt like that needed
songs.
to be said because I think that gets misconstrued a lot.
Yeah.
Because I do think a lot of people, Powerless might be their first introduction to fantasy. And so they're like, oh, I've read this before. And sometimes there was like a time where I was like, I think maybe when I read Powerless, I was kind of like, okay, trial. But I think it's because I had recently read another book with a trial in it. It's just kind of like how it is with even like different tropes in romance books, just to me. So
I'm gonna say this one because I agree with it. Okay. Manacled was the best book I've read so far this year, and I've read 45 books. This is just someone said that. I've read a few more than 45, but I would agree.
I'm going to read that. I really am. So
yeah, same.
I'll find out. Here's one that I have. It doesn't matter which edition you buy. The words are the same either way.
I didn't know that was like a thing.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of discourse on TikTok talking about, well, I'm sure you guys have seen on TikTok the trend of underconsumption. And a lot of people have been saying Book Talk is creating this feel that you have to buy all these books and have all these books, right? Just because,
Oh, yeah.
whatever. And a lot of people have been saying it's crazy to have 6 copies of Fourth Wing. All different editions, special edition, regular edition, sprayed edges, non-sprayed edges. And honestly, I do agree to a certain extent. I do think there are some of my favorite books that I would absolutely love to have special editions of, like Throne of Glass I'd love to have special editions of, Red Rising I'd love to have special editions of, but to have multiple copies of the same book does feel a little much. But one thing I will say, and I guess this is kind of my hot take, one of my least favorite things that happens a lot lately is having different bonus chapters depending on where you buy your book.
Yeah.
I don't love that, but I do love that people post the different bonus chapters on social media, which I don't know technically if that's okay to do, but it's nice that I'm not having to go out and buy 4 different copies just to get one bonus chapter.
Yeah, I kind of hate that too.
Not the funnest thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But hey.
I agree.
But hey, you do you. If you want to have multiple copies of your favorite book, I love that for you. Please do that. Don't let anybody tell you different. You do that.
Yeah, but it's wild. I'll see like a TikTok and it's like my 2 bookshelves full of just different editions of Fourth Wing. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's insane. Especially someone made, I can't find it, but someone said something about how getting special editions of a book when like the series isn't complete yet.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So, and how like that drives them crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I would want it all, like if I wanted a special edition of something, it would be really nice to have all of the series. But I don't know. I guess it just depends. Also, my bank account just says no to
No.
buying all the special editions. I'm like, do I really need that?
Ooh.
Probably not.
Well, I wouldn't give for the Throne of Glass edition, special edition. But I just cannot afford a $300 and something edition. But it's beautiful. If you have that,
We'll be
so
admiring
lucky,
it.
and I admire you for purchasing that.
Yeah.
Whose turn is it? Is it
You.
mine?
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I agree with this one. For the most part. Telling the reader the tragedy from page 1 and then going back to day 1 till the tragedy happens.
I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be surprised.
Yeah.
If I'm reading a book and I know like let's say the first page says that the main character dies or something, then I'm reading the book, which is waiting for the main character like to die, and I know, you know what I mean? Kind of takes away the shock factor. Doesn't make it as entertaining. I can't think of how many books I've read when that happens, but it just doesn't make it as fun.
I've read a few, and I feel like it kind of takes away. Because I feel like if they wouldn't have said it in the beginning, I would have been like more devastated, more shocked. I wonder why some authors do that.
I do know that like in thrillers sometimes they make it kind of, you know, something's about to happen but you don't know who did it, or you don't know the motive or who's narrating, you know, which that can be kind of fun. But I think when it's like a romance and it, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't mind some tragedy in a book, you know, but starting it off right off the bat, yeah, not my cup of tea.
I get that.
This person says, I don't mind DNFing a book. I don't feel like I have to finish a book if I'm not liking it. I think that's great. Sometimes I struggle DNFing books when there's some that I should have.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a great quality to have, especially where there are so many books out there. And if you're just not enjoying it, that's okay. You don't have to like completely bash the author for not liking a book.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I agree with that. I don't necessarily think that's a hot take. I just think people sometimes have a harder time DNFing a book when you start it,
Especially if you buy the book too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
Yeah. I also have a hard time DNFing series. If I've read a few of the books, I feel like I need to finish the series. But there's nothing wrong with not finishing a series as well. If you're not feeling it, or also sometimes if you DNF a book, it's just the wrong time for you to read it. I've DNF'd a few books, but then gone back later and read them and loved them. So don't be afraid to put a book down, set it aside, come back to it later.
I'm really eating my words because I remember at the very beginning of us starting this podcast, I was like, I finish every series I start. I've DNF'd a few series. And that's okay. I just have realized that if I'm not enjoying it, I want to actually like, especially if I feel like it's going to put me like in a reading slump in a bad way where I'm like, I just don't enjoy reading anything right now. Nothing sounds good to me. I just don't think there's anything wrong with DNFing. And I also agree with Kennedy. Maybe DNF it at that moment, but try again later.
Mm-hmm.
I swear, wasn't there just a book that you said you were going to go back to later?
Oh, yeah. It's the She Who Became the Sun.
Mm-hmm.
I just was not... I feel like I may have to read that one instead of listening to it because Maybe I need to do more research. Sorry, this is a little bit of a side tangent. There was just a lot of like Chinese lingo that I just didn't quite understand, and so maybe I just need to have the actual book with me, so if there's a word I'm not understanding, I can just look it up. But listening makes it really hard because I have no idea how to spell it. And so yeah,
Maybe
there's a glossary.
or you should read it on a Kindle.
On a Kindle.
That's one thing that's really fun about reading on a Kindle is like you can look up words that you don't know.
Okay, guys, pull my leg. Get me a Kindle. Just kidding. I don't know. I've gone back and forth about it. I just haven't pulled the trigger yet.
That's okay.
Maybe that's convincing.
And if you don't, maybe you'd get one and you wouldn't like it. But
everyone always says they love their Kindles though.
Yeah, I feel like it's so hard for me. It's hard to read a physical book now.
All right, this one says, I didn't like the Divine Rivals duology and found it so boring. And you know, I've been seeing a lot of comments on our TikTok. We posted a TikTok about ranking romantasy series, and a lot of people felt the same way. So whoever submitted this, you're definitely not alone in the way you feel. And I think this is what makes reading so cool, is what some person may not love, other people do love. Yeah. So while there's a lot of people out there that didn't love the duology, I know all three of us quite liked it.
Yeah. I will say, this might be a hot take, I do feel like Ruthless Vows kind of ruined Divine Rivals for me a little bit.
I could see that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But see, I feel like a lot of people really like Divine Rivals, and then I recommended my sister-in-law read it. Granted, she doesn't really like fantasy. She's never really read it. I wouldn't say Divine Rivals is super like fantasy, but I felt like that was like a good one. I thought she'd really like it. She did not like it at all. So it just goes to show ya, different strokes for different folks. So maybe this is a hot take, since you mentioned, well, maybe it's, I don't think it's a hot take actually. But the amount of people that love to fight about what book is better than some other book is just the most ridiculous thing to me. Genuinely. Like, the amount of people fighting in our comments on some of our videos, I'm just like, whatever, go for it. But it just boggles my mind that, like, I think it's great if you feel passionately about a book and you love it so much, or if you really don't like it, that's great. But when people are like being really angry and back and forth with each other on the internet about it, it just boggles my mind. Because everyone, it's like us, you wouldn't be arguing about a song or I don't know. There's just something about books. I think people just feel so passionately, and it's because books can make you feel certain ways that a lot of other things can't. And I just feel like it's totally fine if, I don't know. I will never understand the need to go fight someone on the internet.
My favorite part is when we, maybe I'll take this out, is when we explicitly said, oh, we haven't read this book yet, so we're ranking it last.
How could you?
Oh, we haven't read the book. I'm sorry. Like, why would we rank it high if we've never read the book based on the cover? I don't know. There are a lot of great books that we just haven't read yet. And so if we ever rank something for the sake of a filter low,
it's all fun and games.
It's all fun and games. Don't take it personally. But the thing is when we do those games, we rank them together. I think individually our rankings will look at
I know we need to post a
so
update.
Like, we just do it for fun. It's just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Next hot take. I wouldn't even say this is a hot take, but listening to an audiobook at anything less than 1.75 speed drives me crazy. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to most of my books. I don't know what you guys do, but I listen to most of my books at like 2.5 speed.
Ooh. Mine's usually 2.
Mine's usually at 2 too.
If it's a fantasy book, I will do 2, but like a romance book, I usually do 2.5 because it's pretty easy, especially if they don't have an accent. But I cannot handle listening to a book at 1 speed because I feel like they sometimes sound like robots.
Yeah. I feel like they're purposely trying to talk slow. I actually saw, I think you reposted it. There was a TikTok that Abby Jimenez did of an excerpt from Just for the Summer.
Oh, yes.
And all the comments on the video were so funny because they were like, I didn't even recognize who this man was that was narrating because it was at 1 times speed, like normal speed. And it was just really funny because I was like, what is this? And it was so slow. But then I was like, I know when I listened to this book, I listened to it on 2 times speed.
Yeah.
And he totally sounded like a different person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just really funny to me. I will say, though, the only book that I've listened to where I didn't listen to it, Magnolia Parks, I had to listen to on like, I think we've talked about this before, like 1.5. But I will say I really liked listening to Reckless on like the slower, like a more normal speed. So
I will also say if you listen to a graphic audio, that's another time that it's nice not to listen to really fast because you miss some stuff. But for the most part, love that hot take.
I do too. Someone said, oh, I can't find it, but they were saying that audiobooks ruin books for them.
Oh yeah, they said because then they can only picture the voice in their head.
Yeah, and they feel like the voice in their head does a better job than the audiobook narrators.
Which, this is kind of a weird question, but when you guys read books in your brain, do you not hear your own voice?
No.
I feel like I read it and it's in my own voice in my head. I don't picture a certain voice in my head.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
I feel like I need to go read a book right now.
It's almost like I it's my voice, but it's not my voice. I don't know how to explain it.
Anyway.
So, like, for example, if I were reading a cowboy romance, a physical one, I would have to, like, be...
Like, hey, darling.
Yeah, like, in my mind, like, it... Because it's... it would have a southern accent or something like that.
I don't know if I necessarily have voices. Like, I can picture things, but I don't know if I have, like, in my brain, like, I envision... Like, I hear another voice.
When there's dialogue, it's not like... Hello, my name is...
No.
Yeah, like One Dark Window, the creature. Like every time I would read something that the creature, that's what you call them. I can't remember what you call them, made, I was hearing like some weird voice in my head.
Interesting. I really can't tell you right now, and I will let you guys know when I actually think
So
about
did you read Magnolia Parks? Like, did you hear accents while you were reading it?
No, not really, no.
I'm trying to think of like
but
if I would.
That's easier. Sometimes I feel like that's easier to separate because, yes, it's in England, but for some reason at the forefront of my brain, it wasn't in England, whereas a cowboy romance...
Yeah,
I don't know.
It's crazy how everyone's minds are different.
Wild.
Oh, can I say one? Someone said, since we're talking about Magnolia Parks, someone said, Jessa made Magnolia Parks so her, especially in Into the Dark. It's like a love letter she wrote to herself.
That's sweet.
Do you guys follow Jessa Hastings? She's really fun to follow. And I do think it looks really similar to her life.
Well, I have one. Well, there's 2. They're opposing hot takes.
Ooh.
The first one says, romance books with a single storyline don't need to be more than 400 pages. But then another one says, it doesn't matter if a romance book is over 500 pages if you enjoy it. I know once upon a time, we said on the podcast, romance books should not be over X amount of pages. In a sense, I stand by that. But I think it just really depends on the book. I have nothing against books that are however long of a romance book. Sometimes for me, it's just not... They're usually not exciting enough to keep my interest. But like, for example, Magnolia Parks, some of those are like 500 pages.
Long.
They're long. And sometimes I'm like, okay, maybe it didn't need this many pages, but I was still like heavily entertained. I think it just goes to show you, with all the things that we're saying, everyone has different tastes in things. And yeah, but it is interesting how I'm more inclined to read a 500 plus fantasy book in a 6-book series than I am just like a standalone 500-page romance book for the most part.
I mean,
it just kind of depends.
Fantasy books, you just have so much more to work with. And also you have to build the world. There's just, anything goes in fantasy, but in a romance novel, a lot of the times they're just real world.
Mhm.
So there's only so much you can do in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
I would say like half of the time, I think romance books shouldn't be over 500 pages, but then half the time they should be. It just genuinely depends on the author of the book, if you connect to it,
Mhm.
as with any book, I think, for the most part.
Yeah. I think it's just, like you said, if you're really enjoying it, it doesn't matter how long
Mhm.
the book is. But if you're like, oh, I'm not enjoying this, maybe just stop reading it.
Yeah.
Or like,
I will say sometimes it keeps me from reading a book when I know it's a romance book and it's really long.
yeah, that's true.
Like Binding 13, I literally, just looking at how long those books were and how many of them there were, I was like, no chance.
yeah. What is,
But I shouldn't judge a book by its
Length.
number of pages.
Size matters. Sorry, you can cut that out.
When it comes,
what does brat mean? Fourth wing is brat.
I don't know.
I don't know what that means either.
I don't know.
Fourth wing is brat. I don't
Is
know what
a
that means.
brat? I don't know.
Like not good. Like
Brat means-
I don't know.
Look it up.
This girl said, sometimes I prefer hardbacks. I think hardbacks are way prettier. They look so good. Sometimes I kind of hate dust jackets.
Do you guys, here's my question. When you guys read a hardback, do you take your dust jacket off the book?
Honestly, it just
Mhm.
depends.
I always
I've had
take
to
mine off.
recently because my child will pull them
Mm.
off. So
I usually just take it off because then that way it doesn't get ruined. And if my hardcover gets ruined, the dust jacket goes over it anyways.
Yeah.
Like my Crescent City book got absolutely destroyed because it was white.
Mm-hmm.
But then the dust jacket just covers it. I honestly, I don't know. Do you guys ever think to yourselves, I'm not buying this book because it only comes in hardback? Will you wait for it to come in paperback?
Sometimes I do.
Because I don't find myself ever really caring. I wouldn't say a hardback or a paperback is more comfortable to read. I would say they're honestly similar. But the debate between a book and a Kindle, that's a different story.
yeah.
Which I think someone did say as a hot take, Kindles are better than physical books. And to some degree, I do agree, because when I go long stretches of reading physical books and then I read on my Kindle, the comfort level that a Kindle brings is absolutely unmatched.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely unmatched. The convenience of having hundreds of books at the palm of your hand.
Yeah, my thing. So I don't know if anyone cares to know this, but this is how I've been reading books on my Kindle recently. My almost 3-year-old will not let me put her to bed without me laying on her floor for like half an hour. And I always like to volunteer to lay on her floor because then I prop up my Kindle underneath her bed and then I lay there and she thinks I'm asleep, but I'm just reading my Kindle and it's underneath her bed. And it's
That's
so comfy because I can totally lay
genius.
on my side, and with my case, I can just like prop it up and I just like lay like this. It's great.
I mean,
I can't do that with the physical book.
you really can't. It
But-
just really goes to show when it comes to Kindle versus hardcover versus paperback versus what books you like, you don't like. Reading is such a personal experience that you can't really compare.
Yeah,
You
and I
know?
also feel like it depends on the vibe, like where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm chilling out on the beach, I probably would love to have a physical book.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it just kind of depends.
Mm-hmm.
But
Because I mean, I know you don't have a Kindle, Mikayla, but what was it like reading Manacled on your phone? Did you like the convenience?
It was really hard.
Mm.
It was hard too. Especially when, I don't know, I think I enjoy like an actual physical book because sometimes I just don't want to be looking at a screen. And I
Yeah.
know technically Kindle's not a screen, but I think the physical aspect of like turning the actual page just like gives me endorphins.
yeah,
Mhm. The smell,
Yeah.
the
Mhm.
feel. Yeah.
yeah, I
don't know.
like
And
that.
also like seeing the physical progress of where my bookmark is. I just enjoy that so much. So, but not bagging on Kindle readers, nor I don't know. I would say I usually buy more paperback because they're just cheaper.
Yeah.
True.
I don't necessarily like they can both be uncomfortable sometimes depending on the thickness of the hardback or paperback debate, but I mostly just buy paperback because it's just a lot cheaper than buying a hardback
100%.
book. So I don't necessarily, if there literally is only a hardback out there and I really want to read it bad enough, I'll just buy it. But when I have my biggest pet peeve is when I'm reading a series and it's not completed, but I've like for some reason bought the paperback versions of the ones before and it only comes out in hardback. It's like such a bummer to have that next to it in the series. I have a few series like that. So
yeah, that is actually the worst. It is the worst.
Let's talk third act breakups. There were a few responses about third act breakups. Someone said, if done right, I really enjoy a third act breakup. Some people say they absolutely hate them. But here's my question. What some books wouldn't be the books they are without the third act breakup in a way.
I just read a romance novel where there was no third act breakup, but they legitimately did not get together until probably the last 5 chapters. So it was kind of the reverse. So it was interesting to see what it was like. Because usually in a romance novel, they get together by half. They're together and then they break up and then happily ever after. But sometimes, I don't know if you guys feel this way. Sometimes I think they just put the third act breakup in there just to have some type of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a very realistic or good third act breakup. Like in real life, you would have talked it out and figured it out. You wouldn't have just gone this one argument and then broken up.
Yeah.
I feel, I mean, most of them have it. I don't know. I feel like when you're reading a romance book, it's hard to give it a plot without it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost just like seeing their relationship build and then they're just happy together. Most
not as
authors feel
exciting.
like they need to like add something to like make the relationship stronger or, you know, really test the limits of the relationship. Because if you think about it, in every relationship, you have difficult times. Just most of the times in the romance books, they have a break or a breakup or a misunderstanding, miscommunication.
Yeah.
Ugh. But like, I know it's sometimes annoying, but it's almost a little bit realistic when it comes to, I feel like that's very normal for relationships to have sometimes a bit of a miscommunication and, you know, testing the limits of like your relationship. So I feel sometimes it's really annoying to read, especially as a reader, but sometimes it's a little bit more realistic because not every relationship is perfect rainbows and sunshine, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and when you think about it too, most romance books, the relationships are in the span of months.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're not years. I mean, I know you have friends to lovers, second chance romance, whatever, but a lot of the times the time frame of the book is just a few months. I don't know if there's been a lot where I've read and it's years have passed. So if it's a fresh relationship and you do have a big miscommunication or something happens, some type of contention happens in a relationship, chances are you're probably going to break up. So,
yeah.
but I mean,
most of the time they get back together, they talk, which I think is also really helpful for some readers who maybe don't know what good communication looks like or like getting through a breakup looks like. I don't know. There's just lots of ways to interpret reading. Like so many different things you can learn, which I think is so cool. Authors, you're doing great out there.
I just can't really think of a lot of books, like if there's not a third act breakup or it just takes a long time for them to get together, what other plot, like, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard to think of. I don't know why I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
I'm genuinely trying to think of a romance book where there hasn't been a third act breakup. Unless it was a slow burn.
I don't know.
And
I'm
honestly,
sure there's some out there for sure, but
here's my question to you guys, and maybe this will be a hot take. Would you prefer a third act breakup or a really slow burn romance and they're only together the last fourth, fifth of the book?
I think it depends on the mood I'm in.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think for the most part, I'd probably rather take. Ooh.
yeah.
Ooh,
I don't know. It almost like depends on the story too.
Yeah.
Because I think there's definitely some books that have been a slow burn that's not done well. And
Yeah.
you're like, okay, we know they're going to get together. It feels like it's dragging and not that it's like building.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
Ooh, yeah. Asked the question, couldn't even answer it myself. So my bad. My bad. It's okay to not like a book that is TikTok famous. Yes. 100% agree with that. Not everyone is going to like every popular book talk book. And sometimes I think I love book talk so much with every fiber of my being. It's so much fun, but also it can be not as fun when a book gets extremely overhyped and you have expectations that are here and it just doesn't meet those expectations. But I definitely think there are a lot of book talk books that I haven't exactly enjoyed, and that's okay. You're not going to love every book talk book.
Yeah.
To go along with book talk, a hot take that just comes to my mind. We've talked about this a lot, but I'm just going to say it.
The raising of the hand for me.
I have something to say. You shouldn't be my hot take is that you should not be posting spoilery TikToks without a spoiler warning or context before you say what you're about to say or do.
I agree.
I agree with every fiber of my being.
Maybe that's not a hot take, but in a way it feels like it is because of the amount of spoilery things I see. And sometimes I see TikToks too, and it's like, I already know the spoiler, like I've already read the book, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. And then I'm like, that actually would have spoiled the book so bad for somebody if they were in the middle of reading that book. So TikTok needs to come out with some sort of feature like Goodreads has, where you can mark it as spoilers.
No, seriously. Just even in general, movies, books, TV shows.
Well, and like it ends with us. I've read the book, okay? We're having I don't know if this will come out after our event, but like, I don't even want to know. I've been seeing people that have had early access to watching the movie, sharing their thoughts about it. And I try so fast to scroll through it because I want to be surprised about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to have any preconceived notions of what happened in the movie or how she did this. You know, I don't even want to know. Even though I know how the story ends, I want to know absolutely nothing going into the movie. And I've already seen quote unquote spoilery things for the movie, and it hasn't even officially come out yet. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Deadpool.
Don't even get me started on that, okay? That's a completely different topic. I could have a whole podcast about it, honestly.
I already know all the spoilers, and it literally came out like 3 days ago.
Mhm, yeah. Haven't seen it. TikTok, if you're listening, let's add a spoiler warning.
Okay.
Something.
I have words to say about this, so that's why I'm
What do I-
choosing it.
I feel like it's the exact same one I was gonna
You're
say.
gonna do?
Maybe go.
I do not get the Cruel Prince series hype.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's my
Sit down. Listen up.
listen close. Okay, here's the thing. This is my personal hot take. In the moment, sometimes I don't enjoy series as much, but when I go back and look at like fan art or look at specific moments, I'm like, that was freaking dope. That was freaking sick. I feel like I really enjoy the Cruel Prince series now more than I did when I first like finished it, because I feel as if I wasn't giving it the appreciation for like certain moments. I was like, wow, I really didn't pay attention to when that scene was happening, because that was actually really cool. And so I feel like sometimes it's okay to not necessarily love a book when you first get done with it. But it's happened to me with a few series where I'm like, oh, that was series okay. But then I look at fan art, I'm like, wait, that was actually really cool. So I understand. Sometimes like the Cruel Prince, I feel is very deceiving sometimes from what is shown on TikTok, but I think it's almost like a masterpiece when it comes to the conniving and, you know, the betrayal, like just everything that leads up to certain moments. I think it's just really cool. But in the moment, I think I was expecting something different, which is okay. But looking back, like at some TikToks that people make fan art of certain scenes, I'm like, wait, these characters are cool. The scene was dope. I feel like I enjoy The Cool Prince just a lot more looking back than when I first read it.
I completely agree with that. I think too, it's misrepresented on Book Talk because a lot of the fan art you see and a lot of the things that people talk about is the romance. And when I tell you that Cruel Prince, the romance is it's such a subplot.
Mm-hmm.
It's way more political, schemy, fantastical, whimsical than it is a romance. I almost would say it's more I would call it a fantasy. I wouldn't call it a romantasy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I struggled, was the fact that I was going in and all I saw was about the romance. And when I got there, when I was reading it, I said, where's the romance? I came here for romance and I'm getting political.
Yeah.
So if you go into it, I think having the right expectations, it's really, really fun. And I agree with you. Now that I've read it, I do appreciate it a little bit more, but it isn't my favorite Book Talk fantasy series. It really isn't.
No.
But it is other people's, and I love that for them. I wish I loved every single book all the same and it hits the same, but it just doesn't, and that's okay. It's okay.
It's sitting on my shelf waiting to be read.
It is really good.
So I can't really chime in, but
just go into it expecting a lot more.
I appreciate this conversation because honestly, I've never seen anything about Cruel Prince on my TikTok.
That's good.
So
now you're gonna get it.
Yeah, now I am. My phone's listening to me.
Shh, don't get it. You didn't hear nothing.
A few people said this, so I'll share this one. Says, I could care less if the writing is considered bad. I only care if it's bingeable and fun. And I would have to agree, because I don't sit down to read a book thinking I need the most flowery, beautifully written writing. Sometimes I want that, and I can appreciate it when I'm reading something like that. But as long as the plot is intriguing and my overall experience reading the book is great and it's fun and I love it, it doesn't matter to me that it's not the best writing. It's all about the experience for me. We've said that on the podcast a few times. So, yeah.
I agree.
I agree as well.
I think it just depends on...
I'm a vibe girl.
Same.
Because some people will sit and like rip on certain authors and be like, their writing is terrible. And I'm like, okay, if you thought that, that's fine. But if you actually read it and thought that it was an interesting plot and enjoyed the way the book went from start to end, doesn't necessarily matter if the writing wasn't the most top tier.
Mm-hmm.
No, it might have made the book better, but
sometimes I'm in the mood for a poetic, flowery, intricately written book, and sometimes I'm in the mood to almost just not have to think and just enjoy the vibes and just have a good time. I don't want to think, I just want to have a good time. So,
yeah. I am all about good times, good vibes. Sometimes I do notice, just like every once in a while, I'm like, oh, that wasn't like, it could have been written a little bit better, but that's not my thought every single time.
mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. I couldn't do better. So
I would do worse.
exactly. You know? And yeah, it just depends on your mood and what you like. And I think sometimes I fall into this a lot. Sometimes I fall into the hype of books on Book Talk, or I'll see someone talk about a book that I automatically know isn't exactly in my wheelhouse. Like, I know I'm not going to really love this, but I try and read it anyway. And then I don't like the book because it's not something I would probably read. So sometimes I wonder if people go into books knowing that it's not up their alley, but they read it anyways. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
So
I will say there's a lot of people that said like a specific book that they didn't like. I mean, I don't have to like name them. Some of them I agree with you guys on. But that's okay. I don't think like reading is so subjective. We love to say that because we all have a different opinions on books too. So it's okay if like your friend really loved a book and you didn't, or like we really loved a book and you didn't, or you loved a book and we didn't, you know, like it's okay. But I think it's fun. I just think it's fun to have different opinions on things. And there's like some, I mean, one of you guys said that you didn't like Powerless with like a crying sad face, and that's okay. That's fine. And if we really liked it. But I think it also, we like to mention too, it's depending on the time in your life, the mood you're in can really affect on how you rate books.
For sure. I also think it matters to how you approach a conversation with someone about a book you didn't like and they maybe loved, because there's been instances where maybe Mikayla or Reggie have loved a book and I didn't, or vice versa, and it's always kind of like an open conversation. It's not oh, you're dumb because you didn't like this book, like
you're so dumb,
you have horrible taste because you did not like this book, and that's just not the case. Like, it's always fun to see and hear their perspectives on reasons why they loved books. And a lot of the times, at least in my opinion, if you talk to somebody about a book that you didn't like but they loved, it almost makes you like the book more because you can see it from a different perspective.
Yes.
And so it's like that with anything. And I think books, especially because going back to what Reggie said at the beginning, books I think are just hit a lot harder because you spend so much more time with the characters, with the plot, and they just hit a lot differently than books or movies or TV. So it's all about how you approach the conversation with disagreements on books, I think.
Yeah.
But it is hard when you love a book and someone else doesn't.
Yeah. Especially when you really liked it. We get it. We get it. You know?
Yeah.
And also like vice versa, if there's like a book that they really didn't like and I did, they can like point out some flaws. Like you can see both sides when it's like, oh, maybe you're right, like that was a little bit of a flaw that I just didn't see when I first read it. So like I love our conversations. They're so fun.
We are very fortunate though, because we do have a lot of the times same opinions and the same taste in books. But it's okay to not like a book, you know?
Yeah.
It's all right.
These are just your hot takes. And I agree with some and I disagree with others. Sellers? I disagree with others.
Yeah, that was fun. I mean, there's so many we could read through.
Well, we really enjoyed reading some of you guys' hot takes. Some of you guys made us giggle. Just the way you guys word things is really funny.
There's so many good ones.
We always can count on you guys for these types of episodes. Our followers really come in clutch with a lot of responses. So thank you for taking time out of your day to respond to us. It helps us out a lot.
You know how many responses we got?
Does it tell you?
I don't think so.
It does,
we got a lot, and I wish we could go through every single one. I think we got over 100, so like we obviously can't get to every single hot take. But just know that a lot of you guys said multiple things, so like you're not alone in the way you feel about certain things. So which is really cool that like someone's gonna agree with you.
You're not alone.
You're not alone. This was really fun. Thanks for submitting those. And we always enjoy these. We see a lot of hot takes, and so it's fun to see what you guys like, what you do like, and it's always fun to get their guys' point of views on like what you guys talk about too. So anyways, if you guys haven't checked out, we have some merch that's coming. We did do a pre-order, but we ordered extra on top so that if you by chance missed it, we will have some extras for you guys to purchase. And we do have some leftover from our previous drops. There are very few in numbers when it comes to like our sweatshirts and t-shirts, but if you haven't checked those out yet, you definitely should. Our website is allreadwhatshesreading.com.
Yeah.
And you guys can follow us on Goodreads. We also have those on our Instagram, Bubble Highlight. And just if you guys want to be up to date on everything that we're reading, we love to do updates on the books we read and stuff. So, and you guys can also follow us on TikTok. We like to be silly and have fun.
And make people fight in the comments.
Make people fight in the comment section. We love you guys, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.